First of all, can you just start by what message are you and the protesters looking to convey here today?
The message is to Senator Schumer right in here. He's not here, actually, and not even his assistants are here, because democracy is on a lockdown. And so we applaud those of you in the media who can take our message to many, many people, because you can't get in to see anyone. And when you call, you can't speak to anyone. You leave a message and maybe they'll get back. Our focus is deep cuts in the United States military budget. Deep, deep cuts. The fact is that Senator Schumer, of course, is the leader of the Democrats in the United States Senate. He's a powerful individual, even though he's not the Speaker. He may be next year. The president of the Senate, not president of the Senate, but the leader of the Democrats and the leader of the Republicans in the Senate if he becomes, if he wins and if the Democrats win. The point that we're making is that Senator Gillibrand is as important as Senator Schumer. She doesn't have an office here in Binghamton. So Binghamton Veterans for Peace and Peace Action, starting 2 months ago, began to organize people around the state in various cities. What you see today in our discussion of what's going on, the deep cuts in military budget, is being done with a letter being delivered not only to Senator Schumer, which we'll try to do in a little while, hopefully to go through the U.S. Marshals, but also in New York City. We have lined up people at Peekskill, the Hudson region. We have people in Albany. Syracuse today will be having a major event at the City Hall in Syracuse at this time, but they will dispatch people down to Schumer's office. In fact, we have a cardboard here. Would somebody get that and hold it up, Jim? Could you hold that up for anybody who wanted to call to be part of it, to call Schumer's office or Gillibrand's office? Now I can go on. Do you want me?
Well, in the release there was talk about obviously military overspending, and you would like to see it give to maybe more life-giving needs. What kind of life-giving needs would you like to see this budget be used towards?
Right. Well, I'm sure that Senator Schumer is wearing a mask, just as all of us here are wearing a mask, because primarily we know that disease is the biggest enemy. It's not other people in other countries. It's the problem with spreading disease. It's health care. Our sign right here from Veterans for Peace and Peace Action. Health care and education, right? Not militarization. Senator Schumer has to take his mask off and face reality that money should be spent for not just that, but for climate emergencies, for the environment, for all of the needs that we have that are human needs, not preparing to kill and, of course, to kill. We should keep aware of the fact that people of color are the ones not only in the United States that are suffering from militarism, but also around the world. Check and see, starting with Vietnam and then moving 3 million dead in Vietnam, 2 million displaced and hundreds of thousands killed in Iraq, in Afghanistan, people displaced, all people of color. But isn't it curious that Senator Schumer has voted for those particular actions? Isn't it curious that, today we're asking for him to, in the 2021 budget, to say enough is enough. 800 bases around the world? It's obscene. It's absolutely ridiculous. We have to shut them down. We have to take the troops home. World War II ended in 1945, long before most people here were born. And yet we still have troops by the thousands in Germany, in Japan, in Korea, in Italy. Got to get them back and begin to focus on our own particular needs.
And you mentioned, it's been tough getting in contact with these federal officials. Is that why, maybe one of the reasons why you're here protesting today?
Yes, absolutely. When our local group organized the 20-meeting Peace and Justice advocates from Buffalo through Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, New York City, and Binghamton, we had 2 conferences. We had a conference one day with Senator Schumer's aide, Eric Aldemura, the military aide, and then the following day with Michael Garden, who's the aide for Senator Gillibrand. They never responded back to us. Not only disrespectful and discourteous, but not doing their job. The question was very basic. What cuts do you plan to make in the military budget for 2021? Senator Gillibrand is on the Armed Services Committee in the Senate. She's a very important person. She is working right now, and it's only going to be days before the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, is passed on to the House of Representatives. In our Constitution, the House of Representatives has the authority to allocate money, but they have to go with the advice and consent of the Senate, who will come up with their authorization. So this is very important time. It's pandemic time. It's a waste of money and a waste of time that we are doing, and we should be focusing on racism. We should be focusing on poverty. I read just something recently that in Boston, Massachusetts, the Boston Globe had to, for several days, had to rewrite what they said, but in the same words, because people didn't believe it. They thought it was a typo. And that is that the average income for black people in Boston is $8 a year. Keep that in mind, $8 a year. This is not a Trump tweet, of course. It's a fact. You can check it out. The Federal Reserve and Duke University all work together to come up with those facts. The other point is the Los Angeles Times and other newspapers are reporting that the Navajo Nation is being hit with COVID-19 worse than any one group in the country. They don't, many of them, over 30% of the Navajo people have no electricity, have no running water. How are they going to wash their hands if they don't have running water? So this is the great USA. We can't even provide medical facilities, in a time where if you were to ask the local armory to draw out their tanks or to supply a hospital with weapons, they would be willing, or maybe not willing, they would be able to do it. So we need to be able to take care of our people, and militarism is not the answer.
Yeah, if you guys know?
I was just going to ask, do you have any maybe number of facts that how much is being put into the military? You're asking.
Yeah, we don't know what the NDAA, this year, 2021 is. The last year was $760 billion, almost $1 trillion. But of course, there are other additions out of that. Some people will come up with interesting figures, such as the fact that 54% of the discretionary budget is used for military in the United States. Keep that in mind. 54% of the discretionary budget used for military uses. That is obscene. It's disgraceful. It's something that Senator Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, they have got to answer us on that point. They have got to say we're going to do something about that. If we're looking for dollars and cents, go to the military. Go to the military budget. That's why we're here today. We appreciate our dear nationals coming.
Thank you, Jack.
Yes, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, normally I try to talk off the top of my head, but I think this is too important not to get it right. So I wrote something out. What I titled it is Full Spectrum Dominance. I read an article recently that reviewed a book based on the premise that the America that we know now as the USA was founded in 1619 when the first boatload of slaves came ashore. And not 1776, as we've been taught to believe. It's definitely an arguable point. Definitely an arguable point. I mean, I can't prove it one way or the other, but it's certainly important that that having slaves set the tone, set the real beginning of the business enterprise that became a nation and now a world power. This pattern is based on the idea that some are privileged and some are to be subjugated. It's the way things are. And I don't believe that. This pattern of dominance is what we see the U.S. treating the whole world today. Full spectrum dominance is a formal military doctrine of complete power over all arenas by land, sea, and air, with biological weapons and cyberspace concerns and outer space arena all thrown in. There is a direct line from having nuclear weapons, an atomic bomb, holding it and threatening to use it on the one hand, and on the microcosmic level, having a policeman kneel on a black man's neck for over 8 minutes until he dies. The line that connects them is depraved indifference to human life. And we're all infected with that kind of perverted moral thinking. It's the pathology of what happens when you have complete power over the life and death of others, and that pathology takes over. I remember when I was on a visit with a peace group to El Salvador, we visited the University of Central America where the Jesuits were killed. An American Jesuit said that when he was asked about American politics, the Republicans tend to run an empire with an iron fist. And the Democrats tend to run an iron fist with a velvet glove. The difference is very slight. There's bipartisan agreement on the fact that we use the military for economic interests. And that is the narrow parameters of the Beltway consensus. And now these endless wars have come home. The ruthless procedures used in the resource wars in the Middle East are now being used against the U.S. citizens.
We can't accept anything on behalf of Senator Schumer because we're not his staff. Oh. Okay, if you guys want us to send a letter, we can either send it to him by mail, or you have to wait until somebody from his staff is in his office. We can't accept any mail on his behalf.
Has to go procedures?
Well, what I'm saying is, because it's for a senator.
Yeah.
We're not a post office. We're not a postal service. We can't accept letters and then deliver them to the senator because it's not the proper way to do it. So if you folks want to do, you can either send it to him, maybe registered mail to make sure that he gets it, or you can wait until.
Well, our point is that this makes democracy incredibly difficult.
Well, it's today's day and age. It's procedures there because I don't know what's inside that letter. So if I take that letter and I put it in his office and there's any kind of a powder in it or anything like that, I just contaminated a U.S. Senator's office. See what I'm saying? So I would have been the delivery mechanism for that.
So, do you know when he'll be in?
Unfortunately, they don't explain themselves to us. I don't know if there's a number. You can probably go on web and find Senator Schumer's website or his office.
Yeah.
And he has offices in Albany and he has offices in Syracuse. So if you guys call a couple numbers, somebody somewhere will pick it up and then see what his schedule is, or even schedule for his staff. If his staff is here, they can accept it on his behalf. I just can't.
There are really hard issues that have to be addressed with our government, and this is making it almost impossible.
Well, you can always use the.
It's not your fault.
I know. I'm just saying is you can always use registered mail. If you guys go to the post office.
Yeah, I worked for the post office.
Okay, so just use registered mail, and then they're not gonna deliver if there's no signature. So they're gonna keep trying until then, or like I said, maybe this is a senator's sub office. This is not his main office. So you guys will probably have a lot more luck if you contact his main office in New York.
Okay.
Which is probably in Albany. So.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know because, like I said, I don't work for the senator, so I don't know.
Okay, thanks. Good.
Well, you're welcome.
Appreciate it. We will do other means. As I was saying, the endless wars have come home now. The ruthless procedures used in the resource wars in the Middle East are now being used against U.S. citizens in the street. I saw a video of some metropolitan policemen in Minneapolis walking down the street, marching down the street, and there were people on their porches. And they all had their weapons, and they were shouting at the people, "Get inside, get inside." And when they didn't do that, the commander said, "Light them up." They all turned and started shooting non-lethal weapons at them. There is no excuse for this kind of behavior. But it's the kind of behavior with that phrase, "light them up," that is being used in the Middle East, in Afghanistan and Iraq and elsewhere. We're concerned about the military budget with the National Defense Authorization Act. The government spends $760 billion a year in pursuit of what seems to be a good idea, security and business interests. this pipeline of cash and credit is seen as non-negotiable in the Beltway consensus. The consensus is that the U.S. can rule the world, but that's a mirage. That's an obsessive mirage, and that it doesn't benefit anybody. It does not enhance mutual security through peaceful means, and it benefits only the corporations who make weapons and the oil interests, fossil fuel interests. And now we have the spectacle of the current occupant of the Oval Office hiding in his bunker one day and coming out one night and coming out the next day, clearing a way to the church with force and tear gas so that he can stand in front of a church and hold up a Bible he's probably never read. This is blasphemy. But what he's doing, he's making everybody go into their own bunkers, because that's the way he feels, that's the way he lives. He knows no other way of living, and it makes us living in bunkers. Pope Francis said that Pope Francis said recently that those who build walls eventually become prisoners behind them. I think we've all become prisoners behind the idea that we can rule the world and that we can dominate everybody. And that is neither necessary nor inevitable, and it'll be the death of us all. First the black people, then the indigenous people, then the refugees and the migrants, and eventually all of us. I think it's time for us to realize that Martin Luther King had it right. It's time. We have to choose between nonviolence and non-existence. We do know better. It's about time we acted on it. Thank you. Oh, there he is.
I know that guy.
The idea of America has been, on the one hand, a triumph of the Enlightenment, a society not run by kings, but by shared labors of common men and women, equal in value, governing themselves for the common good. And on the other hand, there's the great defect, which Jim spoke about, the great sin of this social experiment that began so early in our history, the exploitation of others on the basis of skin color, the preposterous fiction of race. Seeking their own fortunes, some European settlers assumed the right to own other human beings. When reminded that a society half slave and half free was neither the American idea nor a tenable one, the slave-owning class and its supporters, with impious, perilous pride, doubled down in defiance, even after America's most tragic and destructive war, an abolition, rubrics known as Jim Crow, adapted slavery to the post-Civil War era. People of color were still trapped, still oppressed. And even those of us of lighter skin were damaged, trying to rationalize that some could be more equal than others. They became confused and were fodder for exploitation by wealthy capitalists. The moneyed class carried on using poor whites and people of color against each other to sustain their profits. The most clever and manipulative used not only the constructs of color and class, but also the twin loyalties, patriotism and piety, to delude and keep people apart. So it continues. Any ass who can bray or pray with enough conviction just might be elected. George Floyd has brought large numbers of us to see our social system for what it is, a demonic system of control that cares nothing for human life or value save the wealth and convenience it provides for the privileged. Finally, people of all complexions are hearing the cries of Black Americans, especially those with a knee on their necks, who cannot breathe free. As America settled into world domination following the Second World War, for a time it built a middle class and shared wealth more widely than ever before. But the ownership class, eager to hold on to power, paid no mind to President Eisenhower's warning, or should I say General Eisenhower's warning, that a war economy could dominate our common life, completely warp our values. Our war industry sought both contracts and places to test its systems. As the Cold War finally ended, the role of military production did not. It had become wildly profitable. Our tragic flaw, long practiced, that some people are of less worth than others, gave profiteers permission to send weapons and soldiers everywhere from Afghanistan to Yemen. Today we call for change. We demand deep cuts in this profligate military spending. Because racial oppression is still a strong tradition in America, many feel very little cognitive dissonance when we help Israel wall out Palestinians, treat them as a despised class, bulldoze their homes, arrest their children, and tase or kill Palestinian protesters. Those who misunderstand wealth as strength no longer care about the world's huddled masses yearning to breathe free. America has been redefined, not as a destination for refugees, but as a place where brainwashed bigots despise the desperate to keep billionaires and their warmongering minions in political power. Can we imagine the American dream once again as a people united in mutual concern for justice? Can we imagine a society where wealth is no longer devoted primarily to militarism and no longer shared among just a few, but where all people have healthy homes, effective schools, places to enjoy sport, nature, gardens, medical and mental health care? Can we imagine cities where color and class are no longer the coin of access to a decent quality of life? Can we imagine an America where we develop the green technology to preserve our planet? Can we imagine a society where each individual is helped to become all she or he can be? Can we imagine a place where women and men in blue are competent practitioners of social skills, dealing calmly with the distraught and ably with those needing care and compassion? This is the America we need. This is the America we can dream and build and bring to pass. This is the America that begins today, an America that will sustain hope across the planet. To all, we say peace.
Yay.
Thank you.
The activity. If any people on Facebook or YouTube, any place in the country, need to call their senators, simply go online and do as we did. We're here in New York, we're here at the Binghamton, New York, and we're calling today Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand. Senator Schumer could very well be the leader of the United States Senate next year. Right now, he's the most important, the most powerful Democrat senator. Senator Gillibrand is on the Armed Services Committee, and she's working as we speak on the National Defense Authorization Act. That will be the attempt by her and others to probably increase, as they have historically every year, have increased. We are saying here, and this is the Veterans for Peace and Peace Action of Broome County, New York, we're encouraging people not only in New York State, but around the United States to get on the case of their senators and members of the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives, you learned in your history books, is the institution that spends the money. That's the appropriation. They are the ones who handle the purse. The advice that they get is from the Senate. the authorization they get is from the Senate. So you have to work on both sides with the House of Representatives and the senators. Please keep in mind that we're in the midst of a very serious COVID-19 disease. This is probably not going to be the last, and if we had the money years ago to do a research and to be prepared for vaccines, possibly something could have happened. But we have money, endless amounts of money for weapons of destruction. We've got to change that attitude, and that's why we're here. We're saying to Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand, take off your masks, look at the truth. Defund much of what the United States militarism is all about. How do you do that? 800 bases around the world. Get all of them closed. Take the troops home. 70 years after the end of World War II, we have thousands of troops in Japan, in Korea, in Germany and Italy. They've got to come back. So these are just a couple of examples in addition to the F-35 that Lockheed Martin locally is involved in, and the Lockheed Martin throughout the country. It's called the F-35 with their main focus up in New Hampshire, in Vermont rather. They can cut that program, which is going to be close to $500 billion. So there are ways that you can read online and get to your senators from Alabama to Wyoming. Please work with all peace organizations, Peace Action, Veterans for Peace, various church groups. Women Against War out of Washington, D.C. just yesterday supported what we are doing. So women of the world, women of the United States, you have great power and you can do it, but you've got to take action. Another thing on the racial bit, Boston Globe reports that a study by Duke University and authorized by the Federal Bank indicates that the average asset for black people in Boston is $8. People thought it was a typo, it was wrong. They went time and again, went to the stats, went to the figures that you won't hear coming out of a tweet from the White House. But the imbalance of all of this is something that we have to look at, especially as an Independence Day comes up in just less than a month. There is total injustice. It is the independence of the United States was pretty much of a rag if you happen to be black. It was pretty much of a rag if you were a woman. Pretty much of a rag if you're a Native American. It was about white supremacy, and to celebrate that is possibly going to be a different thing, a different change. Get ready for it, and the next major event of July 4th to change what we call the independence, the Declaration of Independence. It was really not the independence of a large part of our population. Call the numbers.
Thank you.
Who can deliver it? Nobody. Well, it's a total lockdown. Democracy not working. COVID-19, nobody's going to be out. We have to put this in an envelope. It's possible. We can give it to the U.S. Marshal. Would you give this to the U.S. Marshal? It's just an envelope with a letter inside.
We can't accept that.
Yeah. Not accepted. Okay. Well, there you go, folks. Democracy on lockdown. Yeah, that's really sad.
This is how democracy doesn't work.
This is what democracy looks like, huh?
And this is how it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're filming all that on the iPhone?
Yep, it's filming in Binghamton, New York.
The letter was rejected, right?
It was rejected. They cannot accept
And
it.
what was the reason they gave you?
The building is closed. There's no one in Senator Schumer's office, and they cannot accept anything on behalf of our U.S. Senator. Federal Protection Services. What are they protecting?
Are they afraid of COVID-19, some germs on that envelope?
They didn't say that was the reason. Even before COVID, they wouldn't accept anything through the senator's
Really?
office.
They wouldn't accept it at the door when you came? Really? Wow.
No one's staffing the office. So thank you for documenting this.
And hold it, I'm just going to take a picture. Can you explain that again, that you can't accept it? It's a company thing?
We cannot accept anything from anybody. Sorry.
You mean the security company? What security company are you?
We cannot accept anything, ma'am. Sorry.
So is that a federal law? No, so then why are you guys doing it? Why don't you just like throw it through the door? Can I just throw it through the door? It's open over there.
You can deal with the gentleman inside then, ma'am.
Can I do that?
You can go deal with the gentleman inside.
Oh, okay, I'll try that. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Hey man, can you just say and spell your name for us?
Do you want me to take off my hat?
Your hat's fine.
Yeah.
Totally up to you.
Okay. It's Damian Cornwell. DAMIEN CORNWELL.
And your title?
I'm the Director of Operations for the Broome County Urban League.
Awesome.
Can he take off his mask also while he's
Yes.
talking?
Can I?
Yeah, because it sounds
Pull my
better.
beard, but I love you guys. Thank you so much. It's killing me, man. I can't stand it. Hey, maybe I'll put my goggles on. Hold on. Because I can't wear my goggles with the stupid masks. They all fog up. Even if I put on the edge of my nose.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, hey, there you are. What's up, y'all? Okay.
He's back.
Thank you. All right, so
So can you talk to us about why you're here today? What are you guys calling out the federal government for? Well, federal officials, I should say.
typically the Broome County Urban League is an apolitical organization, right? We help those people that are in need, people that are underserved, right, economically disadvantaged. We do a lot of workforce development. But we came out today because the issue of human rights is not really something that you can politicize, right? We talk about the values and how well can a collective want to live in, right? We want equality, peace, compassion, opportunity for all. And the reason why we came out to support this is because if those are the values that we hold near and dear to our hearts, we want to represent those to embrace those values and show it in their budgetary process, right? They should make those things a priority in all that they do. You look at how they spend their money, that's what tells you what a man believes and what's near and dear to him. So it's important, if we really want to make a change in society, you should look at the sheet and find out what's most important in terms of what they invest in most. You should invest in your people. That's the most important thing, right? Fairness, equity, upward mobility, sustainability, transformative economies, all those things that help these things go away. The thing that ties us all together especially is, one of my great friends reminded me of a quote that Martin Luther King had made, which was, the three great evils are militarism, poverty, and racism. So change your order of priorities and you can begin to defeat those things. You don't need a town hall, you just need to change your priorities. And that's why we find alignment in an organization and a movement like this.
We're talking with Jack a little bit.
How we doing?
We're talking with Jack a little bit about how it's been tough to get a hold of these federal officials. Maybe that's a reason for being out here today. What has your experience been like when it comes to, conversations with these officials? And what do you hope to accomplish? Maybe, I believe they're planning on giving them a letter today, that kind of thing.
I think the times that we're in right now, I think it's fair to understand that people are busy, right? Even on the side, I have a couple businesses that I own, and I'm going through, right? There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. There's a lot of things. So each and every day, our normal pattern routine is not the same as it was yesterday. I think that's the case for our officials. I think this event is important because it draws attention now and kind of focuses you back on what's still important in the grassroots. You can't forget each day the things that you have to do and the decisions that you have to make and get off track because we've had COVID-19. We still have a country to run. Right? COVID-19 will be here for a while. It's here now. Certainly something we have to deal with, but there were still problems before it came, right? Kind of with the Billy Joel song, "We didn't start the fire, was always burning since the world was turning red." Don't put that in. But I take music, okay? So that's the point. And so I think the the theory behind this is, hey, let's draw some attention to what's going on, and then don't forget, when you go to make these decisions and make this budget, you've got to decide differently. You have to decide on our interests and not the people that voted you in. And they make a lot of money building bombs. That's not always the answer. I mean, if you read Guns and Butter, what's Guns and Butter, right, Dr. Seuss? Right? You can't always just make the bigger gun, You got to do something. You got to fix it. Don't put that in either.
I mean, you definitely mentioned it in the first comment too, but what are some specific areas you'd like to see some more investment in this case, take that investment from militarization to other areas?
I think we need to invest in the social service programs in the sense that we help incentivize people to get off of it. Don't keep a cap on how much they can earn for the first couple of years. Help them climb out so they can stay out. Right? Sometimes some of the rules that are in place help incentivize people to stay in, or de-incentivize them from working. Right? If they can make the same amounts with working hard as they could but sitting home, I'm not a fan of it. I don't have to tell you. I mean, that's just truth, right? You have to find a way to become upward mobility and have a sustainable way to live, right? If you could change some of those rules, you just might have a progressive approach toward finding a new path forward and getting people off of assistance long term. That could be something that could be a budgetary plan, because you got to have the money to do it. Okay, so if you change your focus and change your priorities, you can begin to change behavior. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
I'm all set.
Yeah,
Anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah.
All right, God bless you.
Thanks,
No,
Amy.
thank you,
Thanks,
Jamie.
Appreciate it.
Would it be possible to take Damien off the next student? Damien, person of color, makes sense.